In a quiet corner of 1960s America lived a girl named Sarah. Though the world bustled with vibrant colors and bustling cityscapes, Sarah lived in a world of perpetual darkness. Born without sight, she had never seen the clear blue of the sky, the bright green of a summer meadow, or even the smiling faces of her loving parents. But Sarah wasn't defined by her blindness. She possessed a spirit that shone brighter than any star. Her other senses were incredibly sharp. She could identify people by the sound of their footsteps and knew every corner of her small town by the feel of the cobblestones under her feet. Sarah's mind was a sponge, soaking up knowledge from books read aloud to her and stories whispered in her ear. More than anything, Sarah dreamed of seeing not just shapes or shadows, but the world in all its glorious detail. She imagined colors swirling like paint on a canvas and longed to witness the beauty that others described with such passion. She knew it might be impossible, a wish as far-fetched as touching the moon, but she held on to that dream with all her might. It was a flickering candle in her dark world, a constant source of hope and inspiration. Little did she know, her dream was about to be heard in the highest of places. The news of Sarah's unwavering spirit reached the White House in an unexpected way. A small, local newspaper, tucked away in a pile of reports, featured a human interest story about her. It described her infectious optimism and her dedication to learning, despite her blindness. President John F. Kennedy, known for his compassion and his belief in the power of hope, happened to glance at the article during a late-night reading session. He was deeply moved by Sarah's story. He saw in her a reflection of the American spirit, the ability to overcome adversity and to dream big, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. He imagined her world of darkness and the bright light she carried within. Kennedy, a man of action, couldn't simply read the story and move on. He felt a personal responsibility to help. He asked his staff to investigate further, to learn everything they could about Sarah and her condition. He wanted to know if there was anything at all, that could be done to help her see. He believed that in a nation as innovative and resourceful as the United States, no dream should be considered too far-fetched, especially the dream of a child. He quietly murmured to himself, "We have to try." Kennedy's staff, eager to fulfill the president's request, launched a discreet investigation. They consulted with leading ophthalmologists and researchers across the country. Most offered polite but pessimistic assessments. Sarah's condition, they explained, was considered irreversible with the current medical technology. But one name kept surfacing: Dr. Elias Klein. A brilliant neurosurgeon and bioengineer, Dr. Klein was known for his radical ideas and unconventional methods. He was pushing the boundaries of medical science, exploring uncharted territory in the field of vision restoration. He had developed an experimental procedure that involved implanting a bioengineered device directly into the brain, bypassing the damaged optic nerves. However, Dr. Klein was also considered a controversial figure. His methods were seen as too risky, his research underfunded, and his personality, abrasive and uncompromising, had alienated him from many in the established medical community. He was often dismissed as a maverick, a dreamer chasing impossible goals. Yet, his name offered a glimmer of hope, a possibility that Sarah's dream might not be so far-fetched after all. Kennedy was intrigued and wanted to know more about this Dr. Klein. Was he a true visionary or just a reckless gambler? The answer, Kennedy knew, could change everything. President Kennedy, after receiving a detailed briefing on Dr. Klein's work and his controversial reputation, decided to take a calculated risk. He believed that the potential reward, restoring sight to a young girl and pushing the boundaries of medical science, outweighed the potential risks. But he also knew that supporting Dr. Klein openly would be met with fierce opposition from the medical establishment, and could create a political firestorm. Therefore, Kennedy made a clandestine decision. Using a discreet channel within the government, he secretly funneled funds into Dr. Klein's research. He bypassed the traditional grant application process and the scrutiny of medical review boards. It was a bold and unconventional move, one that could have serious repercussions if discovered. Kennedy justified his actions by telling himself that sometimes, you had to bend the rules to achieve something truly extraordinary. He saw it as an investment in hope, a chance to prove that even the most impossible dreams could come true with enough courage and determination. He hoped this secret support would give Dr. Klein the resources he needed to perfect his procedure, and give Sarah the gift of sight. But Kennedy also knew that he was playing a dangerous game, one where the stakes were incredibly high. With the secret funding secured, Dr. Klein accelerated his research. He refined his surgical techniques, improved the bioengineered device, and conducted rigorous testing in his hidden laboratory. He knew that this was his chance to prove his theories and silence his critics. He also knew that Sarah's future, and his own, rested on the success of this procedure. After careful consideration and numerous tests, Sarah was chosen as the first patient for the experimental surgery. The news was delivered to her parents with cautious optimism. They were told about the risks, the experimental nature of the procedure, and the potential for failure. But they were also told about the possibility of Sarah finally seeing the world. For Sarah, the news was overwhelming. It was a dream come true, a chance to step out of the darkness and into the light. Excitement bubbled inside her, mixed with a healthy dose of nervousness. She knew the surgery was risky, but the thought of seeing, of finally experiencing the world in all its visual splendor, was too enticing to resist. The entire town buzzed with anticipation. Prayers were offered, good luck charms were given, and everyone held their breath, hoping for a miracle. The day of the surgery drew closer, and the world waited with bated breath. Would it work? Could Sarah finally see? The day of the surgery arrived, cloaked in a mixture of hope and anxiety. Sarah, brave and resolute, was wheeled into the operating room. Dr. Klein, focused and determined, led his team with precision. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the delicate procedure began. Hours passed, each minute stretching into an eternity for Sarah's family and the watching world. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, Dr. Klein emerged from the operating room. A weary but triumphant smile played on his lips. "It was a success," he announced. "Sarah can see." The news spread like wildfire, igniting celebrations and tears of joy. Sarah's bandages were carefully removed, and as her eyes fluttered open, she gasped. The world, for the first time, flooded her senses with a kaleidoscope of colors. She saw the faces of her parents, etched with love and relief. She saw the bright lights of the operating room, the sterile white walls, and the concerned faces of the medical team. It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. The initial joy was overwhelming. Sarah could see. Her dream had come true. A new chapter in her life had begun, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a world she had only imagined. The world celebrated with her, unaware of the shadows that were soon to emerge. News of Sarah's restored sight exploded across the nation and the world. Newspapers ran front-page stories with beaming photos of Sarah seeing for the first time. Television crews flocked to her small town, eager to capture her story and share it with the world. Dr. Klein was hailed as a medical genius, a pioneer who had achieved the impossible. President Kennedy, though his role remained secret, felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. Sarah became an instant celebrity. She appeared on talk shows, sharing her experiences and inspiring millions with her positive attitude. Letters poured in from all corners of the globe, filled with congratulations and expressions of hope. People saw Sarah as a symbol of what could be achieved through science, determination, and the power of the human spirit. The medical community, initially skeptical of Dr. Klein's methods, was now forced to take notice. Some lauded the procedure as a groundbreaking achievement, a potential cure for blindness that could transform countless lives. Others remained cautious, pointing to the experimental nature of the surgery and the lack of long-term data. But regardless of their opinions, everyone agreed that Sarah's story was nothing short of a miracle. The world watched, captivated, as Sarah began to explore her newfound world, one vibrant color and breathtaking vista at a time. But the celebration was soon to be tempered by unforeseen challenges. Weeks after the surgery, Sarah began to experience strange occurrences. At first, they were subtle, fleeting shadows in her peripheral vision, odd distortions in the colors she saw. She dismissed them as her eyes adjusting to the new world of sight. But the occurrences grew more frequent and more disturbing. She started seeing things that weren't there, shimmering figures in the corners of her room, faces morphing into grotesque masks, and landscapes twisting into surreal, dreamlike scenes. These weren't just visual oddities. They were vivid hallucinations that felt incredibly real. They often appeared when she was tired or stressed, but sometimes they came without warning, disrupting her daily life and filling her with fear. Sarah tried to explain what she was experiencing to her parents, but they struggled to understand. They saw only a happy-sided girl, finally living the life she had always dreamed of. They attributed her descriptions to an overactive imagination or the lingering effects of the surgery. But Sarah knew that what she was seeing was not normal. The beautiful world she had longed to see was now being tainted by these terrifying visions. The joy of sight was slowly being replaced by a growing sense of dread. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Dr. Klein, initially basking in the glow of his success, was devastated to learn about Sarah's hallucinations. He had poured his heart and soul into this procedure, believing he had perfected it. Now, the reality of the situation crashed down upon him. He immediately began running tests, desperately trying to understand the cause of these disturbing side effects. He realized that the bioengineered device, while successfully transmitting visual information to the brain, was also triggering unpredictable neural activity. The brain, in its attempt to process the new sensory input, was creating its own interpretations, its own realities, that were manifesting as hallucinations. He had underestimated the complexity of the human brain and the potential for unintended consequences. Ethical questions began to plague him. Had he rushed the procedure? Had he been blinded by his ambition and his desire to prove himself? He knew that he had taken a risk, but he had never anticipated such severe side effects. He felt a deep sense of responsibility for Sarah's suffering and a growing fear of the repercussions that could follow. He had to find a way to help her, to undo the damage that he had unintentionally caused. But he was running out of time, and the hallucinations were only getting worse. As news of Sarah's hallucinations spread, the medical community erupted in debate. Those who had initially praised Dr. Klein's work now voiced their concerns, questioning the safety and ethics of his experimental procedure. They argued that he had been reckless in his pursuit of scientific glory, putting Sarah's well-being at risk. Others, who had always been skeptical of Dr. Klein, felt vindicated. They saw Sarah's case as proof that his methods were dangerous and that his ambition had clouded his judgment. However, there were also those who defended Dr. Klein, arguing that medical breakthroughs often came with risks and that Sarah's case, despite the side effects, represented a significant advancement in the treatment of blindness. They believed that further research was needed to understand and mitigate the hallucinations, but that the potential benefits of the procedure outweighed the risks. The debate raged on, dividing the medical community and casting a shadow over Dr. Klein's reputation. Hospitals and research institutions began to distance themselves from him, fearing the negative publicity and the potential legal ramifications. The miracle that had once inspired hope was now a source of controversy and division. The future of Dr. Klein's research, and the possibility of helping others like Sarah, hung in the balance. The controversy surrounding Sarah's case soon reached the ears of Congress. An investigation was launched into Dr. Klein's research and the funding he had received. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered the secret channel through which President Kennedy had funneled government funds. The revelation sparked a political firestorm. Opponents of Kennedy seized on the opportunity to attack his administration, accusing him of abusing his power and bypassing established procedures. They demanded to know why he had secretly funded such a risky experiment without proper oversight. The media went into a frenzy, dissecting every aspect of the story and fueling the public outrage. Kennedy found himself in a precarious position. He had acted out of compassion and a desire to help Sarah, but his actions had backfired spectacularly. He knew that he had to address the situation publicly, but he also knew that any explanation would be met with skepticism and criticism. He worried about Sarah, about Dr. Klein, and about the future of medical innovation. He had to find a way to take responsibility for his actions without jeopardizing his presidency and without discouraging future scientific advancements. The weight of the world seemed to rest on his shoulders. He knew he faced difficult choices. As the political storm raged around Kennedy and the medical community debated Dr. Klein's procedure, Sarah's hallucinations intensified. They became more vivid, more frequent, and more disturbing. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. She began to see things that others couldn't see, things that seemed to exist just beyond the realm of human perception. At first, she was terrified. The hallucinations were often grotesque and frightening, filling her with anxiety and paranoia. But as time went on, she began to notice a pattern. Some of the hallucinations seemed to be connected to real-world events, providing glimpses of hidden truths or impending dangers. She started to see shadows lurking in places where crimes were being committed, and she began to hear whispers of secrets that others were desperately trying to keep hidden. Sarah realized that her hallucinations, though terrifying, might also be a gift. Her brain, wired differently after the surgery, was picking up on subtle cues and sensory information that others were missing. She was seeing a hidden layer of reality, a world that existed just beneath the surface of everyday life. The question was, could she learn to control her hallucinations and use them for good? Or would they consume her, driving her to the brink of madness? The answer was still unknown. A series of mysterious disappearances plagued Sarah's town. The local police were baffled, with no leads and no witnesses. But Sarah, through her hallucinations, saw glimpses of the missing people, trapped in a hidden location just outside of town. She saw the kidnapper, a shadowy figure with a distinctive limp. Initially, she was hesitant to come forward. She feared that people would dismiss her visions as mere hallucinations and that she would be ridiculed and ostracized. But the faces of the missing people haunted her, and she knew that she had to do something. Gathering her courage, Sarah approached the local sheriff, a kind and understanding man named Sheriff Brody. She cautiously explained what she had seen, emphasizing the details that only someone who had witnessed the kidnappings could know. Sheriff Brody, though skeptical, was intrigued by Sarah's story. He knew that she was a bright and honest girl, and he couldn't dismiss her claims outright. He decided to investigate, following the clues that Sarah had provided. To his astonishment, he discovered a hidden underground bunker just outside of town, where the missing people were being held captive. He apprehended the kidnapper, a disgruntled former employee with a distinctive limp, just as Sarah had described. Sarah, despite her struggles, had used her newfound sight and unique perspective to help solve a crime and save lives. She proved that even with its flaws, the procedure had given her something valuable. President Kennedy, following Sarah's heroic actions and the ongoing public debate, decided to address the nation. In a televised speech, he acknowledged his role in secretly funding Dr. Klein's research. He admitted that he had bypassed traditional channels, but he defended his actions by emphasizing the importance of pursuing medical innovation, even when it involved risks. He spoke of Sarah's courage and her unwavering spirit, highlighting how she had used her newfound sight, despite its side effects, to help others. He acknowledged the concerns about the safety and ethics of Dr. Klein's procedure, but he also argued that progress often required taking chances and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Kennedy announced the formation of a new medical review board, tasked with overseeing experimental procedures and ensuring patient safety. He pledged to support further research into Dr. Klein's technology, with the goal of mitigating the hallucinations and maximizing its potential benefits. He concluded his speech by urging the nation to embrace hope and to continue striving for a future where medical miracles were within reach. He took responsibility for his actions, but he also planted the seed for future innovation. His presidency would be remembered for this choice. Years passed. Dr. Klein, though still somewhat ostracized, continued his research, driven by a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to mitigating the side effects of his procedure. He never forgot Sarah, and he always felt a deep sense of responsibility for her well-being. Sarah, now a young woman, learned to manage her hallucinations, finding ways to filter out the noise and focus on the information that was truly valuable. She became a valuable asset to her community, using her unique perspective to help solve crimes and assist those in need. She even started a support group for people with similar conditions, offering guidance and understanding to those who felt isolated and alone. She never regretted her decision to undergo the surgery. Despite the challenges, it had opened her eyes to a world she never knew existed, a world filled with both beauty and darkness. She had learned to embrace her unique way of seeing, accepting both the gifts and the burdens that came with it. The world around her shifted to a new plane of existence, one in which she was now able to navigate. She found peace. And so, Sarah's story became a legend, a testament to the power of hope, the complexities of medical innovation, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It served as a reminder that even the most extraordinary achievements can come with unforeseen consequences and that true progress requires careful consideration, ethical responsibility, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes. The tale prompted reflection on the definition of sight. Was it merely the ability to perceive the physical world, or was it something more profound? Did true sight lie in the ability to see beyond the surface, to perceive the hidden truths and the unseen connections that bound us together? Sarah's journey suggested that sight, in its truest form, was not just about what we see, but about how we interpret what we see and how we use that knowledge to make the world a better place. The legacy of JFK's decision lived on, sparking ongoing debates about the role of government in funding scientific research and the ethical considerations that must guide medical advancements. The story served as a cautionary tale, reminding us that progress should never come at the expense of human well-being and that compassion and responsibility must always be at the forefront of our endeavors. The world pondered the story of Sarah, the girl who dared to dream of sight, and the president who dared to make that dream a reality, even with its unforeseen consequences.